Hi, I'm Monsy Hernandez, one of the co-founders of ONWARD, our network for the well-being and advancement of relocated dreamers, formerly known as Departed Dreamers. This is the fourth of our video series called Dreamers Abroad, which will focus on the lives of dreamers that have self-deported and how their lives have changed since moving to a new country. This is not legal advice, no encouragement for any decision-making process. This is just a series about dreamers and their experiences. Today, we have Oscar Leon with us to talk about his experience moving to Mexico. So, could you introduce yourself, Oscar?
Hi everyone. My name is Oscar Leon. Right now I'm 25 years old. I'll be 26 in a month. And for me, I was born in Guadalajara, and then at the age of 4, that's when I originally moved to the States. I lived there for a few years, and then I moved back to Mexico for 2 years, and then moved back to the States when I was 10. And then I was there pretty much the rest of my life until I was 24. And as soon as I turned 24, then that's when I made the decision to come back, and I've been living in Mexico City like ever since. So right now it's been about 18 months since I've been living here. So still pretty new to like everything, but enough to know like basically, yeah, like how life is like here, and anything else.
Great. And what were your reasons for departing the United States?
It wasn't just a single reason. I would say that it was like primarily two or three. The first one is like I actually never really had DACA. So the second time that I came back to the States, I came back in December of 2007, and one of the requirements was to be in the country since July of 2007. So because of those like 6 months, I wasn't able to like I was never eligible to apply for DACA.
Mhm.
Um, so for me, like being undocumented, like I was very limited in like literally every option that I had. I didn't really feel like I was limited until I started applying for school, like before I started my undergrad degree. Um, but yeah, like thankfully, like I actually grew up in Washington State, like just outside of Seattle. So like overall, like that's a really good state to grow up in, and they do have like a lot of support for not just like DACA recipients, but also for undocumented people. And like thankfully, like through that, I was able to apply for WASFA and still go to school. Thankfully, like I was able to graduate like debt free, which is something that like not a lot of people can say, and I feel very, very thankful that I was able to do that. But after I graduated, like my options were like even more limited. So um, one of the reasons why I left was like for professional development. Like I knew that I was never going to like achieve or really build anything in the States. And like I still feel that way, even I still would have felt that way even if I was a DACA recipient. I just think it would have taken a lot longer for me to make the leap, especially considering I probably would have like taken on debt and gone to an out of state school, or and I'd still be there paying that off. Um, so that's one reason. Another reason is like for me, like I did move around a lot as a kid, and it's something that I still like to do. Like I've moved like 6 times since I've been back to Mexico. Um, but for me, like I really just wanted to travel and see other places. I felt like I was very like yeah, I did travel a lot in the States. I was able to see like every region, a lot of the major cities. But after a while, it's not the same as going to a different country. And that's something that I really, really wanted to experience, especially when I was still young. So I'm still working on that as well. Like I don't think I'm ever gonna like want to stop traveling, but um, the opportunity that I now have that I'm able to do that, that's another big reason. And I would say the third one is just I always felt like a second class citizen when I was living in the States. That's not a very like good way to live. Not that I had fears of like being deported. Like I never really like had that issue, especially in like Seattle. Um, but at the end of the day, like I felt like my options were super limited. I never really felt like I belonged in the States. And it, even though like a lot of my friends were being very successful, they were doing all the things that they wanted to do, and I was very happy for them. I wanted that for myself. And it sucked knowing that the only reason that I couldn't do that is because of my status. So I think I made the decision to leave like 2.5 years before I actually did it. Um, I had a plan of like saving up a certain amount of money, and then within 6 months of graduating college, like I'd be in Mexico. And it ended up being closer to 2 years before I left. Um, I really don't regret it. Like I spent a lot of that time like seeing new places, visiting like different national parks. I had a really nice job, like working at a motorcycle dealership that I really, really liked. So like I was really comfortable, and it's one of the things that I kind of forced myself to like get uncomfortable again. Otherwise, I feel like it would have been very easy to just kind of settle and like stay there like a lot longer. Um, but yeah, I think I made the decision to leave about a year before I graduated school.
So, you mentioned that in the United States, you had the feeling that you were a second-class citizen. Now that you're in Mexico, how has your personal development changed in a place where you feel like you do belong?
Well, that's a good question because even though I'm technically from here, like that's what my passport says and everything, I still don't feel like I fully belong. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying that in a realistic way because if you grew up in like in the States and then you come back here, you are going to notice cultural differences between me and like the people that grew up here. But that's normal. That's expected. And the longer you're here, like the less you're going to feel that way, and the more Mexican I felt. Um, but honestly, just like the very first interaction that I had was a positive one. Like when I landed in the States, I ended up going to Puerto Vallarta. I had some like points with my Southwest credit card back from the States. They didn't fly to Guadalajara or Mexico City at the time. I don't know if they do now. Um, but yeah, I wanted to get a free flight. Like at the very least, I could get a free flight back home. So I flew to Puerto Vallarta, and the very first thing that the customs officer like asked me, like when I gave him my passport, he's like, oh, "Okay, cool. Do you live here?" And I'm like, well, like yeah, I guess I do." And he's like, "All right, welcome home," and stamped, and that was literally it. So like the minute that I like left the plane, like I just had like a sense of freedom that I never really had in the States. Um, like instantly, like a few days before, my dad had mentioned that he had like a cousin that he grew up with that he was really close to, that he lived in Puerto Vallarta and he could help me out. Like, hey, just pick me up at the airport, take me to the bus stop so that I can get to Guadalajara. And for the longest time, like I've always been really independent and very like stubborn about doing things myself, even when I shouldn't. So I kept saying, no, it's okay. Like I don't know the guy. I'll just take an Uber and like not worry about it. And then like 2 days before when I had like everything packed, I'm like, okay, this is kind of a lot of stuff since it was literally everything that I owned.
Yeah.
Um, so I ended up asking my dad, like, hey, can you talk to your cousin for me and like see if he can pick me up? And yeah, with like even though he didn't know me and he had never met me, he'd heard of me like obviously through my dad, but somebody that I like, to me was a complete stranger at the time. Just from the fact that he was like related, like family, like he like called off for the day, like picked me up, like he took me out to get lunch, like we talked for a few hours, um, and yeah, it was really nice knowing that like hey, even though I'm new here and I already feel like I have some people that I can rely on. So I did have that in the States, like especially with like the family that I have up there and like some really close friends. Um, but it was really nice knowing that like when I came here, I already had some kind of like a safety net. So that was also a really positive experience.
That's wonderful. I'm happy to hear that, returning home was, probably a healing thing to experience, right? To just get home and complete strangers are nice to you and they welcome you back to the place where you're originally from. That must have been really nice.
Yeah.
So I know that you are a Mexican citizen. So this might sound like a strange question, but what was the legal process of going back to your home country? Did you actually have to take any steps to become fully integrated back into that society?
Not really. But there was a few things that I did before I left the States that I think would be really helpful. And this is just going to be like primarily advice for people that are coming back to Mexico. Although I'm sure a lot of it will probably be applicable to other countries as well. But like before I left, like about a year before I did, I ended up making a post like I think it was like on a Reddit forum post, basically just asking like people like, hey, what should I do while I'm still here, just to make the transition a little bit easier. And one person recommended, hey, you should go to the consulate and like get all your like paperwork in order. So I did that, and making an appointment was a little difficult. I remember that you had to download an app, and like I just went there. I presented them like my old expired passport, my current driver's license, like from Washington State, and like a proof of address. And just with those three things, I ended up leaving that day with my passport, and then the INE, which is like the national like ID essentially. Like it's like what you use when you're going to go vote. That one didn't come in, but that one wasn't given to me like that same day. That one was actually given to me through mail. It took about 6 weeks, but since I came from Mexico, um, but once I had those two things, with the INE and with my passport, like once I came here, I wanted to get things done like right away. So I ended up showing up at Guadalajara like just past midnight, like when the bus dropped me off. And then the next day, like at 9 in the morning, I was in the bank, like opening up a bank account. So, but yeah, with the INE, that's pretty much all you need like here to do most things. So all of the government forms that you're going to need, like you're going to have your GURP, your social security number, your RFC, which is like your taxpayer identification number. You can pretty much get all those things by yourself, like just through the government website, once you have these two documents. So that's the thing that I would recommend, like everybody do. Make sure that you get those two things. My parents had an original birth certificate, so I brought that with me as well. I didn't keep my bank accounts open in the States. I kind of wish that I had, but honestly, it's not really too necessary, especially with things like Wise and Revolut that you can do. Um, but yeah, within like 3 days, I pretty much had everything like Mexican phone number, bank account, all my like paperwork. So basically, as soon as I got here, I was already ready to like start applying for jobs and doing everything like everybody else.
It's good that you got all of that sorted out as soon as you could. And I appreciate your information with it because I think it's also very helpful. Being a Mexican national, I didn't know it. I didn't know a few of these things, so it's good to know. And that actually brings me to the next question. In regards to your first year to Mexico, how was that experience overall?
Overall, I think it was good. Yeah, like really, really good. I like before I left the States, I basically told myself that I was going to teach myself how to code. And I did do it at a very, very like lucky time in the market. When I moved here, like everybody was hiring and nobody could find enough developers. So even though I didn't have like technically any experience, like I had basically like built a portfolio that I could like showcase like, hey, I know how to program. I'm not just a math major. And I ended up like that and combining that with like being fluent in English. I think that's a really good combination here. And I was able to secure a few interviews. I didn't pass like all of them. Obviously, like I'm going to fail a lot of interviews when you're new to something. Um, but within a few months, like I ended up getting like two offers that I really liked. Um, and I ended up going with the second one. I worked there for just over a year. It was for like a Canadian like multinational like company that had an office here in Mexico City. So the team that I worked with, everybody was based in Mexico City, but we were hybrid. Like it was actually remote at the beginning because it was still like during the pandemic,
Mm.
and then afterwards, then it was just going to the office once a week. But it was still flexible. Like I didn't go every single week. And then after that, then like it was good. Like I had a really good time there. I really liked my coworkers. The work was like fine. But I definitely felt like I could like earn more doing this. And like within a year, I started like applying for other jobs, and then I got something else. So that's I've been there ever since. And now it's fully remote. Like I work for an American company, so everybody that I work with is in the States, and I'm the only one here in Mexico. Like at the time being.
Okay, so that's kind of funny that you actually ended up working for an American company while in Mexico after leaving the United States. I like how that works out. Other than getting to have essentially the job that you wanted, what other opportunities have opened up to you since getting back to Mexico?
Besides that, I would say like here I'm basically able to actually plan for like a future. Like in the States, I used to like never invest. I would save, but I wasn't really able to like open up like a 401k or Roth IRA, anything like that. So I didn't really like spend any time like learning about it. When I got here, I'm like, okay, I'm 24. I should probably start doing this like sooner rather than later. So that's something that I'm like able to do now, and it's like nice knowing that you can kind of plan ahead for like a future. But like besides like all that stuff, like I've been able to travel. Like when I first got here, My plan, like I was super focused on just like getting a job so that I could like have some stability. But I did end up going to Colombia, and my plan was just to stay there like indefinitely until I got a job, since I was doing like all the interviews remotely anyways. And I do wish that I had spent a little bit less time in Guadalajara and like left earlier, just because like I didn't really realize like how much I really, really wanted to travel until I started doing it. And I was only in Colombia for like 3 weeks, but I really wanted to be there longer. A beautiful country. Um, and ever since then, like I have left like two other places as well. But now that I have like a full-time job, it's a little bit harder just because like, yeah, I get time off. And even though it is fully remote, it's just harder. Like it's way better when you don't have work and you can just go somewhere and like really, really enjoy it. Because I have traveled like throughout like Mexico specifically. Um, like while I'm working, and it's nice like being able to be somewhere for 2 weeks and not have to take any time off and just like work like your regular 9 to 5, and then like explore and do things on the weekends and after work. But it's not really the same. I feel like you can get way, way more out of it if you like out of 1 week than a whole month somewhere. If you aren't working. So that's something that I've been like able to do now, which is something that's really, really cool. Like in the States, I never would have been able to get something that's remote. Um, and as far as like making connections and friends and everything here, like obviously moving to a new country is already going to put you out of your comfort zone like tenfold. Um, but I figured like, yeah, why not? Especially if I'm going to be down here, like why not learn how to dance? Like one of my friends took me to a salsa bar one day, and I felt so out of place. Like I have never felt like I belonged less somewhere than that first day. But it looked really, really fun. Like it looked like everybody like was just having a great time. You can be social without like having to drink. And I told myself that I was gonna like learn how to dance salsa and other things. And that's actually one of the ways that I've made like a lot of my friends here. So I ended up signing up for like a 5 week course, and then just kept doing that over and over and over again. And yeah, like now I'm still not good, but like even though I still have like two left feet, like now they know some moves.
Ooh, so do
um,
you feel more like you belong whenever you go salsa dancing?
it depends because I basically only do like Cuban salsa right now, and I feel like a lot of places do like salsa en línea, and it is quite different. Um, but you know, I mean, there's plenty of places that you can go dance here, like no matter what like style you do. Like bachata is really popular, cumbia. So if you learn two or three of them, I think you can pretty much you can have fun. Like it's enough that when you go to a party or you go to an event that's like centered around dancing, you can go and do it, and it's okay. It did take me a long time to get to that point, but naturally I was just like really, really stiff. Like it just did not come natural to me at all.
I mean, I think it's very good advice though, because in Mexico you can't socialize unless you know how to dance. So hot tip for anyone moving back to Mexico, you got to know how to dance, and you got to know how to dance well. It's very
Yeah, definitely
important in the
encourage it.
culture. Unfortunately, I do want to ask, and I mean, it sounds wonderful that you've been in Mexico and you've had really good opportunities. You've learned how to dance, you've got to make friends. But what difficulties have you experienced since moving back to Mexico?
Let's see. Like I think the biggest difficulty is honestly like the things you're gonna miss from the States. Like it can be something as simple as like your comfort food. Like for me, like if I go out one day and then the next day I'm like a little hungover, in the States you could go and get pho like anywhere. You can't really get that here. Like I've seen two places that sell it, but they don't look good. And I've seen the reviews online, seen the photos. It doesn't look good. So you're gonna have to change like all these like little habits that you have, and that does take a lot of time to adjust. Um, but also just the people that you miss. I think that's like the biggest thing because like my parents, my sisters, they're still in Seattle. The not my immediate family, but like the extended family that I grew up with, they're still in Seattle as well. So, and they're undocumented, so they can't come and visit, and I can't go and visit them. Besides my sisters, like both of them were born in the States and like they're US citizens. My sister was here for about 2 weeks, like last year, and she's coming again this year. So I'm able to see her. But besides like them, like friends and family, like in Seattle, like it's definitely real. Like the Seattle freeze when somebody moves there, like it's really hard to make friends. And I never really realized that until I moved here and like saw like just how different the dynamic was. Because like in Seattle, for example, if like we were having like a barbecue or a get together and somebody would invite somebody from work or somebody that we didn't know, like yeah, we would be very friendly with them and we'd talk to them and include them that day. But none of us would like ever like reach out to them like to invite them again to like go hiking the next weekend or do anything like that. Like it was just like you never really branched out. And then here, that's not really the case. Here, I would meet somebody at at a salsa event and then get their number, and then like within a week, they're texting me like, "Hey, my brother is having a birthday party. Do you want to come?" And I go there, and it's like not even that many people. It was like they just happened to invite you. And like so, but anyways, like what I'm saying is like back in Seattle, the friends that I had, I've had them since I was like 10 years old, 12 for a lot of them. So I've been friends with them for 10, 13 years with a lot of them. So obviously like we are really, really close, and like not having them like that also really, really sucks. Like you do make friends here, but it does take a long time, I think, especially for men sometimes to like build that like emotional connection with other people. So yeah, like it is hard like not being around, especially for like the big moments. Like I've had friends that have like bought a house, bought an apartment for the first time. A few of them have like had kids now, and like I haven't been able to like be there for like any of those big moments. But like they've been able to come and visit, so that's like it's definitely positive, but it's obviously not the same thing as like living in the same city as them.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. It's a hard one knowing all these milestones in people's lives that you're going to miss because they're so important to you. Um, so it's important to definitely consider that when you're considering self-deportation. Do you personally have any advice you would give to someone who is considering self-deporting?
Well, there's a lot that you could say when somebody's considering doing that because it is like it's not like you can just try it out and then if you don't like it, come back. Like it's like you have to be pretty sure that you'll be okay in the new country that you go to. Um, the main thing is like honestly, like before you leave the States, just make sure that you do everything that you wanted to do in the States because like for me, I don't know when I'll be able to go back. Like it's been 2 years since I've left and I still don't have a visa. And even if I wanted to get a visa, like the appointments for the embassy here in like the in Mexico City, I think it's like 500 something days right now. So it would take a long time. And even if I go there, like there's always the chance that I get like the 10-year ban because I was there after I was 18. I was also working there. So without knowing like when you can come back, I would say just take advantage of everything that's like still available in the States. Like for me, I think that one of the like especially growing up like on the West Coast, I think that the access to public lands, the national parks, that's something that's really, really well done in the States. Like it's one of the few places in the world that has like that much access to all these like beautiful places. And like people should take advantage of that. Like you should go and see all these places while you still can. Spend like as much time like with your friends and family as you can. Like tell them like how much they mean to you. Um, yeah, like just make sure that when you leave, like you're okay. Like if the last conversation that you have with them is like that time before you left, that like you'd be okay with that.
Yeah. And before we finish off this segment, I just want to ask one last question. And I think it's probably one that you're going to be asked very often in regards to leaving the United States. Was leaving the United States the right decision for you?
Yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, there's been obviously some hard moments and stuff, but at the end of the day, I feel like I would have really, really regretted like staying in the States. Like if you're watching this video and you're considering it, like I don't know how you feel, but like me personally, like I was miserable like my last 2 years in the States. Like I really, really didn't want to be there. And yeah, like it was just it was not a good time for me. So when it came down here, like it really has done like a complete 180. And even though there has been difficulties and there's things that I regret not doing while I was in the States, um, I definitely don't regret the choice that I made of coming here. Um, I've also been very lucky. I think I'm very fortunate with like the life that I have here in Mexico. But at the end of the day, even if like nothing had worked out, I would have been okay with that. Like, and I knew that coming down here. Um, I definitely was not happy in the States, and here, like it is really nice having like a completely like a fresh start, and you can kind of just do whatever you want. Like it is like a really liberating feeling, and like once you do it once, like I think it kind of becomes like, hey, you can do it again. So like I'm definitely open to like moving somewhere else in the future. Like when I first came down here, my plan was just to stay for 2 to 3 years, get work experience, and then like try to move to Canada, Australia, maybe somewhere in Europe. But now that I've been here, like honestly, you can have a really, really good life here. And now that I've like started building connections, friends, I already speak the language. Like, I mean, I did speak it before, but yeah, I think it'd be really hard like moving somewhere else. And it would take a lot right now to like move somewhere else. Like I'm thankfully very happy with everything that I have so far.
Well, if you ever do come to Europe, stop by Germany and we can hang out when you're here. So thank you so much, Oscar, for all of your answers, for doing this interview, for sharing your experience. Do you have anything else that you want to say before we close off the video?
No, I guess like the last thing that I can say, you can put like my LinkedIn or like my contact information, like wherever you think is fine. And if anybody is coming to Mexico, especially if you're working in tech, like I can tell you what the job market's like here, like what you can expect, like how to navigate the interviews and all that stuff. It's really not that different than the States, I would say. But yeah, if you speak English and everything, there's a lot of really good opportunities. So if you have any like tech industry specific questions, like please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for joining us. So we will have a new video coming up pretty soon in Britain. So we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye, everyone.